Okay, so I started lifting 20 years ago, and since then I have grown from being about 180 pounds to 220 pounds. And it's been a very long process, but as I've learned from the science-based lifting community and just studying nutrition and exercise and basically effective hypertrophy and how to grow, I've been able to utilize a lot of these skills in refining my programming, my exercise choices, and how I lift to get pretty good results. I mean, 40 pounds is quite a bit. That didn't happen overnight for sure. And I think probably one of the biggest problems people face in the fitness industry is expecting results faster than they should. So I've been 220 probably for the last 3 years. I definitely haven't gone through any bulking phases lately. That gets really tiring. But for years I was bulk and cut. Did some bulks that were like 5,000 calories, and then would come back to a 2,500, 3,000 calorie cut. So anyway, lifting experience wise, I've been able to achieve some pretty big milestones. I deadlifted 400 pounds once. I thought that was pretty awesome. Not a big number for a 6'3" guy, but it's a long way to pull a bar. So deadlifting was always more of a sumo for me, but I've been able to squat 315, and then, which isn't great when you consider I can bench 315. So I definitely have really focused on chest training more so than anything regarding the big Olympic lifts. So I can bench press 315 for 5, and that's sort of like my crowning achievement in lifting. But it's been a lot of fun, and I definitely think the benefits of it are immense for longevity and just overall health and stuff. So I'm a big fan. I listen to a lot of guys online and do my best to try and weed through all of the nonsense and all the crazy stuff out there to find the stuff that's really effective. But I try everything. If I hear something and I think, hey, there's some merit to this, I'll give it a shot.
So you mentioned you've been like lifting for like 20 years, but like you've been in the science-based lifting sphere for like you would say the last 10. So
Yeah.
how would you say that like the industry has changed on social media over time? And how would you compare like the creators that you were first learning from to the ones that you like admire and respect today?
Wow. The way I started learning about lifting was through bodybuilding magazines. And I would buy magazines off the shelf that would have programs in them. I would come home, I would copy them down onto either in a spreadsheet or write them down on paper, and then take them to the gym and log. And I didn't have, all the computer resources that the apps give you today that show you your progress over time, that help track every single set. I mean, it was really hard. And the nutrition advice was absolutely horrible. I didn't really learn how to eat until I was about 30. I would say I didn't really learn how to eat until I was almost 30, which that really inhibited a lot of my growth as far as being able to put on muscle. And I think the protein, the protein science every other year flip-flops. It's so insane.
Every 6 months it comes full circle in this community. I'm curious, how much protein do you eat a day, just generally?
Yeah, so I've been eating 250 grams of protein every day for probably 10 years. I mean, I could go back into my Fitness Pal.
Staying for 10 years, like you tracked with a scale?
Yeah, I did up until, when did I stop tracking? About a year ago. My macro factor, Jeff Nippard's macro factor, is the best food logging app that has ever been made. I've used a bunch. I was on my Fitness Pal for a long time. I actually had one streak on my Fitness Pal that was 1,000 days without missing one. And I logged every meal for over 3 years without missing a single one. But my total log was 5, 6, 7 years probably with my Fitness Pal. And then I did macro factor for the last 3. I did 3 paid years of macro factor, and then I stopped. It was a lot of money. And well, not really. $80 a year is not a lot of money. Okay. I was mainly just trying to break my obsessive compulsive addiction to logging my food, if I'm being completely honest. So, and I got into a routine where if you're not bulking or cutting, logging your food becomes very standard. Like all of my meals, all of my eating, I eat at the same restaurants. My wife cooks the same meals. I know exactly how much I can eat. I know how many eggs I cook for breakfast every morning. I know how much a scoop of protein powder is. So I've been on a maintenance for a year, and that was mainly the reason why I stopped logging, because unless I'm bulking or cutting, I don't log, because I can see the scale. It stays the same. I've been very consistent. Since January, I've weighed pretty much exactly 220, plus or minus 2 or 3 pounds, obviously. But the fitness industry has been crazy. The amount of misinformation out there is rampant, and most of it's just clickbait, because for influencers and for fitness, professionals, I guess you would call them, to get interest and to get clicks, they have to come up with radical new clickbaity kinds of topics to talk about. So by them pulling people's strings and saying, oh, this changed, this changed, this changed, this changed. Guys, the human body hasn't changed since it was created. We've been human since we were human. And there's nothing new under the sun. It's like you eat protein, eat a lot of protein, okay? Just eat a lot of protein and you're going to do fine. And if you're bulking, I say eat the same. That's what's funny about protein. You eat the same whether you're bulking, cutting, or maintaining. Always eat the same amount of protein. So once you figure that out, you're like, okay, I eat 250 grams a day. So it's like 1.25 grams per pound. Not quite exactly. I have to do the math, but you know.
Oh, I thought you said you weighed 220.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so I'll eat 250, I weigh 220. So I try and eat more than, so in my mind, I want to eat more than 1 gram per pound.
Wait, I thought you ate 150.
Oh, no, I eat 250.
Oh, okay, interesting. I didn't. Okay. So you're in more of a higher protein camp, you would say.
Yes. See, it's funny because I'm science-based, but I'm also old school. I'd say if you were to label me as a lifter, I'd be a hybrid lifter because I still love heavy compound, heavy Olympic lifts. I still love high volume training. And I mean, Arnold is my inspiration, honestly. If you want to know like who I look to for physique inspiration, it would be Arnold. And for protein, I'm old school in the sense that more than 1 gram per pound. And the science, when you go onto the science side of it, not all of the protein you eat is bioavailable. So when you look at, let's say, a 0.8 gram per pound number, that's what they want you to get, from my perspective, high quality, very high quality protein in that 0.8 grams per pound. I don't know if all of my protein is super high quality. So I eat excess to account for the amount that you're going to lose. It's just not as good.
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, it makes sense to cover your bases, especially if you're not tracking what you're eating with the scale anymore. And I think you're one of those cases as a coach where I actually would recommend that, especially for the goals that you have, it's not really necessary for you to be weighing every single thing that you eat. And as a coach, that's hard for me to even say because most of my clients, I'm going to tell them to weigh everything they eat if they have a physique goal in mind. But after you get so in tune with the foods that you've been eating and your diet, and your life becomes kind of this repetitive maintenance where you really know exactly what you have to eat to fuel your body maximally without gaining any fat, you can kind of stay in this period of homeostasis forever where, if you find the amount of protein that works for you, I wouldn't argue that you should change it. I do think that people can definitely get away with maximizing with less protein than they're led on to believe. I would say that it has a little bit more to do with like lean body mass than a lot of people would argue. Like I wouldn't say that a 220 pound person and a 180 pound person should eat different amounts of protein if they have the same amount of lean body mass, because the excess amount of fat isn't really going to be relevant as far as the metabolism is concerned with digesting protein and turning it into contractile tissue. So the problem as well is that like you can't really fit nuanced subjects like this into a 1 minute long TikTok video. And in order for creators to get this attention, like you were talking about, they have to make these radical statements. And then what often happens is these creators have to continue to stand by the philosophy that they've created for themselves because they've built this fan base from it. So it's very hard for somebody like, I don't even want to throw any names out there. It's very hard for a big creator to go back on something that he said, even if he truly feels that, even if he truly changed his mind. How is he going to tell his fans that he's changed his mind, that he was, wrong, or he possibly overlooked something?
Yeah, like Nippert going on to his low volume training that he's been doing lately and saying it's the greatest thing he's ever done in his life. I think another influencer came along and said, well, you shouldn't just take his advice if you aren't an experienced lifter who's reached essentially your genetic potential. Because and really what Nippert's experiencing is just shock. I mean, his body is being shocked, or he's exposing himself to new stimulus that his body's not used to. So his body is under probably a greater amount of recovery than typical, and so he's reacting better to it, which when we do those shocking things that, they can definitely help. But for most people, it's not going to be beneficial to drastically reduce the amount of training volume that you have. So.
And another thing that you said, like about being like a mix of like a science-based lifter and a bro lifter, in the sense that you like to do compounds and train with high volume, I don't think that makes you any less of a science-based lifter. And I think the whole point of being a science-based lifter is just understanding the adaptation that you're training for. And I tell that to all of my clients all the time. And I deal with a lot of clients who are like in the senior citizen age, and I deal with clients that are around my age, and I tell them the same thing, which is that you can do any exercise in the gym as long as you understand what adaptation that's going to bring you. As long as you understand exactly what you're training for and what it's going to get you, you can do anything and it's justifiable. You can be science-based and still do a standing overhead press because you understand, you acknowledge the risks, you acknowledge the inclusion of other synergists that aren't the target muscle. You can acknowledge that. You can acknowledge that it may not be the best exercise for hypertrophy and just do it because you enjoy it. That still makes you just as science-based as anybody else.
Good. That's good. I really like that. That's a very balanced view. I think it's very good to come into the community keeping an open mind and just basically making room for more perspectives. And I don't think that the science-based community needs to be as dogmatic as they are and to say there's only one way to do something. I definitely think there are best ways and there are less good ways of doing things, but I don't think we have to necessarily exclude people because they choose to do things differently.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about where you got the idea for your product. So like, how did the idea for the Betterfly come about? Because you mentioned that you love training compound lifts. So why'd you even come up with the idea to isolate if you loved training with compounds for so long? Did you maybe, because I know I saw in one of your videos you mentioned the Betterfly is built for people with like overpowered arms. And I thought that was really funny because like I am the opposite of that target demographic. Like I have, if anything, weak arms compared to everything else in my physique, and that might have something to do with like I'm 6'2", but I have like a 6'5" wingspan. I have very long arms. I have really poor bicep insertions. And when I ordered the product, I was wondering like, I wonder if I'm going to suffer from the fact that my arms are a weak point when I use this product. And I didn't notice that whatsoever. And I would say that yeah, your product is definitely, if anything, I think it's I think it might be more built for people with weaker arms because you're really trying to isolate the pecs and the lats or the upper back, so then you can have more direct volume to the biceps and triceps. Because the biggest issue with me when training my biceps and triceps is that when I do presses and when I do rows and pull downs, I've already like pre-fatigued my biceps to the point where I'm not getting a quality of a stimulus out of my curls or my push downs.
Yes, yes, 100%. And when we start to go through the benefits of isolation training, they really are endless. And I actually feature on my website one of the tiles I talk about better programming, because when you can isolate the pecs and the lats and the delts and take out your hands and your forearms and your bis and tris, you get more effective work with your biceps and triceps after. And I've been on a push-pull split. That's my favorite. Push-pull legs. It works well with my schedule. And I only like to do legs once a week. So I do those on Wednesday. And then Saturday, Sunday, I'm off. But the way I've structured my programming is the heavy compound lifts always come first. I always do what's the most fatiguing first because I need the most energy. So I'll start off with heavy bench press or heavy incline or heavy decline or heavy dumbbells on one of those. And I'll usually do 2 different exercises that are heavy compounds. So I'll start with, let's say, a heavy bench press. This past week I was at 275. I did 3 sets of 8. And then I went over to a heavy incline and I did 225 for 2 sets of 5. I think I'd have to check the log. Don't hold me to it. But after those 2 heavy compounds, I would do flies. And, I still love isolating movements, but back in April is when the idea hit me. Okay. I'm doing the math and I'm a math guy. I love math, love angles, love geometry, love algebra, although I can't use algebra in weightlifting. But anyway, I was benching 315. I was walking over to the cable machine and I was selecting 30s on both sides to do my chest flies. And I just had this feeling. I was like, this is wrong. This is wrong. Okay. I don't care how much torque is being created by holding these 30-pound dumbbells or 30 pounds in my cables.
I'm too strong for this.
I'm too strong for this. This makes no sense. I have 60 pounds in total volume or in total resistance. And I'm thinking, okay, I can put 60 pounds on the cable machine. I can curl this. And why is this a chest exercise? This makes no sense. And why do my biceps hurt so much at the end of my flies? I get on the pec deck and I do the full stack and I'm like, okay, I can feel it in my chest, but my arms, I can feel it in my arms more than I can feel it in my chest. But I just never really asked the question. Okay. And that's the one thing that I think we need to do better in the science-based community is asking good questions, because most of the fitness junk that's out there from these clickbaiters, if you just ask good questions, you can cut through most of that junk and figure out what they're really up to. Like, can you tell me more about this and why this is happening? So, okay, so I'm asking good questions and I'm thinking, well, I need to eliminate my hands, I need to eliminate my forearms, and I need to move the attachment point to where I can actually work my chest in a single joint with a single joint. So I started experimenting by grabbing larger straps that we had at Crunch and putting them on my elbow. And first I would just try them like that. And man, that was a no-go. Like the very first time I put that big old fat strap on my arm, I was like, this hurts. So I went and got my gym towel. I had a gym towel in my bag. I wrapped it around my arm. And I was like, okay, that's not too bad. The next day I did chest, I brought 2 gym towels, put both of them in there. And then I got my compression sleeves out that I use when I bench sometimes. I put my compression sleeve on, put both towels in there and put the strap on there. I was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. So I was able to raise the weight up and I was doing the study on the physics of it. And I said, okay, I need at least double the weight. I got my tape measure out. And I was like, how long is my arm?
Oh, you really calculated it.
I did. I wanted to see where the distance was. And so I was like, okay, my arm is usually this long, but I usually fly about like this with my arm slightly bent. So I measured it to 24 inches from my shoulder joint to where I would be holding the cable handle. And then I said, okay, so where's 12? And 12 puts it literally like right an inch above my elbow line right there. So I said half the distance, double the weight to equal the torque. So if I want the amount of stimulus to my pec to be the same, because muscles manage torque. I need the torque to be equal. And so I need to double the weight. Okay, great. And then the problems started coming. I was like, this is weird. I would take the 30 pounds, I'd double it to 60, I'd put it on my elbow, and I'd say, usually I would get about 12 reps, maybe 13. Now I'm getting 18, 19, 20 reps. What's going on? Like, this is the same amount of torque. And I said, oh, right. My pec is stronger when I'm not limited by my biceps. And that makes perfect sense. I said, now that I've removed the limiting factors, this extra stimulus is coming from my pec actually being able to be, to exert itself to its full potential. And I actually was posting about that this week about effective reps and the fact that when you do flies with your hands, you are not reaching within 5 reps of failure for your pecs because your limiting factor is your biceps. And I would argue, and I need the science, I need someone to do these studies, but I would argue that the difference is significant enough because of your bicep being the limiting factor that you are never reaching within 5 reps to failure on a handheld fly. That would be my premise. That would be my hypothesis. The question is, are you even getting within 5 reps to failure for your pecs when you're doing a handheld fly? So I went home on May 8th and I drew up the very first BetterFly. And I came up with the name on that day too, because I had a friend who passed me in the gym and I was showing him and he said, man, you need to sell this. And it was nothing but some towels and a strap on my arm. He was like, you need to sell this. I was like, okay, cool. So I have my notebook here. I've been drawing in it for the last several months. And I have this picture of this dude. I've got this attachment here with these huge pecs, and the little plate, because the plate story is really interesting. Here's one right here. So basically what I did was I realized very quickly as the weight got higher, the amount of compressive force of the cuff on your arm is like this. I mean, without the supported plate and a cuff, when you have your arm in here.
It's like a blood pressure test.
It is. I would lose sensation to my hands. When I was exceeding 70 pounds per arm, my hands would start going numb. And sometimes it would hit a nerve and my hand would get all like tingly and stuff. And I thought maybe just the padding would help, but even with all the extra towels in there, it would squeeze really hard. And so I realized, I said, I've got to put something hard in the cuff. So I went home and I drew this up. I came up with this idea and I started 3D printing it here in my house. And I actually bought the materials off Amazon. And I told my wife, I said, can you teach me how to sew? So she got out the sewing machine and she taught me how to sew. And here's one I made myself. I used a purple strap on this one, but I got the sewing machine out and it took a few months for me to get a version that actually looked half decent. But I bought the thickest neoprene I could find that had rubber on the inside because I said, this has really got to stay in place. And the first few versions did have an elastic band on the inside. Here's one of the bigger versions. So it has elastic on the inside like this. And
see, I like that, honestly. I think that might be, I have to try that, honestly, because you would think just logically looking at it that would be like perfect. Because that would fit anybody's arm. Yeah, but that might still have some compression issues.
No, actually it's pretty cool because the elastic is springy. So there's so essentially the elastic does not have any relevance to the load bearing capabilities because the strap is going around the outside and the elastic exists on the inside. So the elastic never gets compressed by the amount of force that you're applying because all that force is being applied directly to the hard plate on the back.
So then what made you end up having the beta without the elastic?
Okay, so I went through a month of testing with this, and this is the leg version called TheBetterFly. Well, I actually just renamed it this week. It's called TheBetterFly Solo because the leg version is made to be used one at a time because you can only work out one leg at a time. You can't work out both legs at the same time.
You could, but it would be crazy. Yeah, someone's going to try it now.
Someone's going to try it. So on the arm version, or on the BetterFly, when I would do chest flies with them strapped on and the elastic was holding them in place, for one, you have to put the device on your arms before you clip it into the machine. So, well, it's either that or you put one on and you load the weight and you pull the weight across. But if you are waiting to put this one on until this one's loaded, you have to bring this arm to grab the other one and hold it. Because you have to hold it to pull it onto your arm because it's fitted and you can't slide your arm through it. You have to hold it. So it's easier if you put them both on and then you clip this one on and then pull it over and clip this one on. It's a little bit easier to clip than it is to pull the device on when you're holding 60 or 70 pounds on your arm. Nevertheless, I have some great videos that'll probably never make it online of me trying to get into position with these things. It is, oh, it's hilarious. It is so funny. So eventually I started thinking, well, there's got to be an easier way to do this. And I cut the elastic out. And this is actually one that had the elastic in it. It's why it's all like rough right here. It had the elastic because that's how I made them. I made them with the elastic in them. And I started testing them with just relying solely on the rubber grip. And the really cool thing is I was able to do everything without the elastic that I could do with the elastic. Now, the one thing I've been receiving from all the beta testers who are having an issue with it moving, I believe, is really an angle issue. And I tested this on my wife because she uses the same size I use here. And the first week or two she used it, there was a lot of travel. So she would have it on her arm and it would wiggle up or it would wiggle down or wiggle up. And the more I would watch and adjust, like I'd say step out a little bit farther, move the pulley up, turn a certain way, so that essentially you don't want the line of force when the device is on, you don't want the line of force to match with your arm to where the cable is pulling directly down or directly up when you have a smaller arm. When you have a bigger arm and it pulls directly down, the strap actually hits your arm and stops the device from moving. So for me, I have a catch here. So for me, it wasn't that big of a deal. But for her, the plate tips and then it rocks and it moves. So she has to get the angle in just the right position so that that plate will stay in contact with the arm. Now, I will say this, I do have some smaller ones, and I actually just got delivered today from my factory in North Carolina. And they have a 20-inch strap instead of a 24, and they'll be like this. So I'm hoping to get those into the hands of some guys, you for example, to test it out. Let me know what you think about the smaller version.
So I've only noticed this issue. Sorry, you can continue. I was gonna say I've only noticed this issue on like back movements, like pull downs especially, because I know like in the science-based community, not a lot of people are really doing pull downs above like 90 degrees of shoulder elevation most of the time anyway. And especially with the flaps and stuff, most people are stopping at about parallel with the floor, which is fine. But I mean, when I train back, I'd usually like to go a little bit higher, at least reach like 120 degrees. So my biggest issue is literally only once my arm goes above 90 degrees, and I find that hard to like work around, only because the line of force kind of has to change once you go into those like extreme degrees of range of motion. So one thing I was thinking, I don't know, like you can let me know if this doesn't make any sense. Like I see people like wearing like Versa grips in the gym like the whole workout all the time, right? Like I would totally be down if it fit properly to wear the BetterFly the whole workout. Like I would keep it on my arms the whole time. So like I'm thinking, would it be like slightly easier to get myself into a setup if there was some type of like hook attachment where I could like get myself into the stack while having the cuffs already just like pre-attached to my arm, or would that not really be like plausible?
Oh, bro, that is so good. That is so good. So there's actually, this is great. There's actually in development, I can't really talk about it because my patents aren't pending on it yet, but there is a particular method. I won't say too much, but there is a mechanical device that I've invented that's going to be a one-handed carabiner. And you're like, carabiners are one-handed. Have you ever tried to attach a carabiner to a round hook with one hand?
Yeah, it's very hard.
Extremely difficult. So I'm actually developing a clip that's one-handed. And the reason for that is so if you are wearing cuffs on both arms at the same time, this arm, because when the cable is out here, it would have to be out a little bit farther, obviously, for this to work. But you essentially can attach this arm with this hand and this arm with this hand. And so it gives you, when I'm using, I actually have a little prototype that I use at the gym. And when I have those on my extensions, because you have to be able to reach them, I can get in the cable crossover and attach this arm to this pulley with a clip and this arm to this pulley with a clip without ever having to pull the weight off the stack. And then my arms are in, and then I can start working out. And when I'm done...
This is just without the BetterFly though? This is just with like a cuff or something?
No, it's with the BetterFly, yeah. It's with my version that has the elastic in it. So the problem is that this device is extremely complicated, and it's going to cost a whole lot of money to get this mechanical device created. So for now, I've developed what I would call a workaround. And really, honestly, to go back to your point about the elastic, that is a very viable option. And I really think that I might end up with doing a one-in-one in the box where one has the elastic and one doesn't.
Like a pro version or something, like even for unilateral exercises, it would be, I would use it literally for unilateral exercises.
Right. Because if you had one that did grab, let's just say that, if we had one that did grab on the arm, you could use it for all your unilateral back and shoulder exercises, because really chest flies are the only well, you've probably seen me doing the lat pull downs with them, which those are really fun, the 2-arm lat pull downs. But most of the stuff is 1 arm. So having one in the box that had a strap built in, like an elastic, that would be really cool.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. Like I would definitely be willing to buy that one because that's literally if that and once again like I wear it the whole workout. Like, I have no problem with that. I keep it around my arm the whole time if it was comfortable enough. But
Looks cool, and that's how the first few months mine were wearable, and I would wear them the whole time, and I loved the way they looked, and I loved the design and the colors. So I definitely love hearing the feedback from you on that, because that goes right in line with so many things I've felt about this already.
yeah, that's crazy. So like, what's your favorite thing that you've seen people do with your cuff online that you didn't think of yet?
Wow. Well, the new. I mean, there's one guy, his name's Matthew. He was doing some crunches, and he asked me about doing abs, and I was like, I've never done abs before, so I went to the gym and I did some abs, and then he sent me his video doing abs, and he moved the cuff up pretty high on his arm because I had mine sort of lower, and that was pretty cool. I'd say doing crunches with them was a different. That was the first time I'd been surprised. Most people are doing back exercises, which is unfortunate just because the chest is so good. The chest flies are so good. The Keenan flap thing is just really popular, and I love that. And I love that it's good for Keenan flaps. In fact, I actually made Keenan his very own. This is one of my testers, but it actually, if the focus comes in, it says Keenan flaps on the bottom. So
Has he gotten a pair yet?
yeah, he has them. He's using them right now. He said he's on a cut, and that he's waiting till he can fully push himself to the limit before he talks about them. But he has them in hand, and so he's using them, which is fun. But yeah, guys are doing some different things, and the most of it I've seen before. What's really funny about this is that I was doing my Keenan flap. I wasn't doing this partial range Keenan flap, but I was doing full range, from the highest point over. But I was doing these for a month or two before I even heard about Keenan or Keenan flaps. So
With the BetterFly too?
yeah,
Oh wow.
I developed this to do chest flies, which is why the name BetterFly came up. And then I said, because it's a single joint movement, what else can you do single joint? So I started going through the body thinking, okay, what else does moving my humerus do? So it does back. So I need to be able to do back exercises. So I put it on my arm. I would do pull downs with it, and I would do rows with it, and I would do straight arm pull downs with it. And then I said, well, I need to flip it up here and do shoulders. Now, can I do all the shoulder angles? I can do lateral. I can do
like a shoulder press. I like a shoulder press with it. I tried that the other day. I mean, I haven't perfected the setup enough. I have to get the cable in the right spot.
Yeah, I'll kneel right next to the pole, and I'll put it on my outside arm to where the pulley is angled down like this, and I'll start basically sitting on my feet with the cable attached, and then as I come up onto my knees, the weight gets loaded onto my elbow, and then I'll basically just do this motion. So with the plate on the top.
Oh, so the line of force is really straight. If anything, it's not really, the cable's angle is not changing very much. So you're not going into more extreme ranges of motion up here where so that's my biggest issue, just because my brain, I'm weird when I do exercise. Even if it's not necessary, I just like to go through a full range of motion. And that's another dissonance thing that I would say that maybe some people would argue doesn't make me a science-based lifter, because even though I acknowledge that it may be better to shorten my range of motion sometimes, I choose not to. But regardless, that's the biggest issue that I've noticed. But I honestly think that elastic band, as soon as you make that available, I'm going to get my hands on it, because I want to try that out, because I think it'll make a big difference.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Really, really good feedback. And I've been team ROM, team full ROM, team full range of motion since Israel, made that his slogan, which was years ago. And it was a fun thing. I was like, yes, finally somebody on team full range of motion, because that's what I've always been preaching. So yeah, the BetterFly just developed over time after, well, this is funny because I actually have sitting right here on my desk a whole roll of elastic. This is what I used to make those versions with. It's sitting right here on my desk. But anyway, team full ROM and the BetterFly, and just developing it over time has led me now to where I felt like I could get real serious lifters using it and giving me feedback, and it's been pretty awesome. And it's been one of those things where everyone loves it for something, and I'm trying to get it to where everyone can love it for everything, and that's where I want to go with it.
Yeah, because I love it for chest, and I'm honestly at the point now where I'm contemplating taking just all press out of my program and just giving the BetterFly a shot for 6 months and seeing what it does to my chest gains.
Blow it up.
So I think so. I don't know. You got the pecs to show for it too. Not trying to appeal to physique, but that's definitely, you can tell you've been using the BetterFly.
So let me talk about that for just a second, because we haven't even scratched the surface on my EMG testing and the activation that you get when you isolate.
About that, like, do you have like an at-home kit or something? Like, how'd you get that? You just ordered it off the internet?
I did. Well, his name is Rowan, and he runs a company called Mr. EMG out of New Zealand.
The guy on TikTok.
Yep. Yep, that's who I got it from. So I found him because Keenan actually had a video where, well, Rowan did the Keenan flap. I found Rowan because Keenan reposted the video that Rowan made doing the Keenan flap, and he was doing the EMG testing. And I said, oh, I have to have one of these, because after just 2 months of doing chest isolation with the BetterFly, I could see a difference in my pecs. I could feel a difference. Every single workout was so much better than my previous years of chest training. I mean, I would literally have to go into the gym and pound the weight for chest for an hour. I would do 25 sets of chest in a workout, and I would barely feel like I'd done anything.
With that cuff, 5 sets and you're fried. Like, you can't do more than 5 sets with that cuff, because it's such high activation per set.
Exactly. And then I'd start using the BetterFly, and I'm just torched. I mean, there was one day I did 10 sets of flies with the BetterFly, and my pecs were sore for a week. I was like, that's never happened. I'm usually 48 hours. I'm recovered. I'm back in the gym. I'm lifting again, maybe 72 if I have a really good workout. But I'm telling you, man, I would come back in on Thursday for my second chest day of the week, and I would not be fully recovered. And I'm like, this is something else. So I pulled back a little bit to 8 sets, and some weeks it's 6 sets of flies with the BetterFly. But the EMG results, okay? So after I started in April, May I started building them. I had working prototypes by mid-May, and then I started using them every week, every day. In fact, I used it for push day, pull day, leg day, push day. So I used it every day I trained. And by June 1st, I had found Mr. EMG and placed the order, and it came in a couple weeks later. So I think it was sometime in June I started my EMG testing. And I did that because I knew something was happening, and it was significant. I could feel it. And anyone who uses the BetterFly for chest knows. They're like, I can tell something different is happening. So here's what I did. So I learned how to use the EMG. I learned how to read it. I understood what it was saying. So for those who are watching the podcast who aren't familiar with EMG testing, it basically is measuring the electrical activity in the muscle. Why is that significant? So you have to walk down this train of thought, okay? The brain controls the muscle, and the muscle is made up of motor units. And the motor units are essentially bound together in different types. You have type 1 and type 2. But the best way to explain it would be like holding a group of pencils together, and this would be a motor unit. It would be all of these little fibers connected together. When the brain fires this motor unit, the entire thing has to activate, okay? But they don't all activate at the same time. They're only activated when needed. They're only needed when proper tension is applied to the muscle. And that's weight, when a proper load is applied. And Henneman's size principle basically discovered that the more force you apply to the muscle, the more motor units are recruited. Type 1, slow twitch first. Type 2, fast twitch second. So as you apply more load to the muscle, more motor units are recruited. And you get to a point where you recruit 100% of your motor units, and then you can't recruit any more than that. And that shows up in tests when I'll hit a number in my chest training that shows a reading, and then I'll raise the weight, and the reading is the same. And I'll raise the weight again, and the reading is the same. Like, it's like I cannot recruit any more motor units. Like, I'm using all of them. And what's amazing about that is you realize very quickly there are excessive amounts of weights that you can lift that are not beneficial. So I've learned, okay, this is random, but on my straight bar lat pull downs, I would go up to like 275 pounds. But when I did my EMG testing, I found out that about 209 is where I hit 100% recruitment. And going up in those extra weights just is really extra fatigue. It just makes me really tired. And it's sort of interesting because your range of motion shortens when you add that much weight. And a lot of that is where you're losing the effectiveness in heavier weights, is because your range of motion is decreasing. Now,
it could also be because like synergists are somehow more involved as you're increasing the weight. Like maybe if you're doing a lat pull down, you're more likely to use your biceps or your traps a little bit more than your lats, or do you think that's not really? Yeah.
Oh, that's 100% true. In fact, what was his name? It was just Chris Beardsley. Chris Beardsley is a researcher on Instagram, posts really good infographics, and he was talking about how you have a potential of what your brain is capable of activating simultaneously. And when you're activating more motor units across multiple muscle groups, there will be almost like a mental limit to how hard that muscle can work while it's doing all of these other things. So you will, yes. So when you start going up in those extra weights, those cooperative muscles will be taking some of your brain activity away from your lats. Yeah. Yeah, I do think that that's true, maybe as a general premise, but not as an ultimate rule. So the thing about motor units and the science-based community is that there are so many haters out there of EMG, and people, every time I post on EMG, I get the comment, EMG does not correlate to hypertrophy.
We need it
I
in
just
order
want
to make conclusions about hypertrophy.
Exactly. Yeah, we have to know how the muscle is working, and the only way to know the muscle is working is through EMG. It's literally an X-ray, if you will, into the exercise. Like you're seeing into what you're actually doing and the work the body is actually performing. And if your muscles are working harder with this exercise than they are with this exercise, then you will either have to raise the intensity of this exercise to match it, or you won't grow the same. And the growth is, in my opinion, directly related to motor unit recruitment. And there are other factors, of course. Tension is a must, because people will say there are scenarios when you can recruit a lot of motor units, but your body is not under a significant amount of tension, and therefore that's not going to lead to hypertrophy. And I would respond to them by saying, let's stay on the topic of weightlifting. Okay, you're talking about something else, like maybe jumping or sneezing, or when you feel threatened and you punch someone. Okay, yes, you activated a huge amount of motor units for that very quick reaction. That's not weightlifting.
And those also would have different EMG readings, like like compared to if you were just doing a low effort kind of just plyometric. Well, sorry, a high effort plyometric without any load versus like resistance training under EMG. I would assume that the readings would be different. I mean, you've worked more with EMG than me though, so you could probably confirm that.
What the waves, if you call them waves, they're just electrical signals, and they move just like your muscles do. So you have dormant, and then you have the concentric, and then you have the eccentric. So you have the muscle contracting and then releasing and contracting and releasing. And basically what it's showing you is the amount of tension that's being applied to the muscle. More tension means more motor units. And so as the waves get bigger, more tension is being applied to the muscle. And you can see the rep. This is a rep, and this is a rep, and this is a rep. And when you add together all of the tension or all of the electrical readings, what you get is a volume number. And that volume number will tell you how much work essentially the muscle did. Like how much work, how many motor units showed up to the party. And when I tested handheld flies to the TheBetterFly, the lowest number I saw in any test was 50% improvement in motor unit recruitment. That was the lowest I saw. And that could have been because I was putting myself in a not really advantageous position with the TheBetterFly, or it could have been an angle position. There's so many different things that go on in setting up your tests to try and make them the same. But I will say this, okay? All of my tests that I publish, if you will, are one-to-one torque comparisons. That's what blows my mind. What I did not try and skew the results, because I could have skewed these out into the stratosphere, man. I saw some numbers that would blow your mind.
Because you could do more weight when you shorten the moment arm and you have the cuff. Yeah.
So 30 pounds here compared to 80 pounds on my elbow.
It would blow a D handle out of the water with the readings. Yeah.
It's insane. 600, 700, 800%. And it's massive. And especially when I compare failure sets. So when I do most of my comparisons, you have to do them with a lot of integrity and compare 20 seconds of work to 20 seconds of work. So when I'm using my hands, I'll compare 20 seconds of exercise to 20 seconds of exercise with the TheBetterFly.
Standardize the tempo, I would assume?
Sometimes. It typically does, actually. It typically does equal the same number of reps.
No, like I'm saying, like your eccentric, concentric, and the pause in between is the same amount between every rep?
Yes, every time.
Okay, that's what I meant by tempo, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I would do like 2 up, 2 down, 2 up, 2 down, 2 up, 2 down, kind of like that.
Okay, yeah.
And then with the TheBetterFly, because when you're talking circles, okay, when you're doing a fly, your arm's moving in a circular position. So the degrees of motion are the same when you're moving your arm in this direction, whether or not the weight is attached to your hand or your elbow. If I move 90 degrees of shoulder flexion, or no, flexion is this, anyway, shoulder adduction.
Adduction, yeah.
When I'm moving at 90 degrees of adduction, whether the handle is in my hand or in my elbow, I'm getting the same range of motion. The difference is in the speed. When my handle is out in my hand, the speed of the weight is a lot faster than it is here. But I would still standardize it to where in 20 seconds I was comparing 9 reps to 9 reps. Okay, so I would do 9 reps, and it was just because obviously the weight's lighter. When you're in your hands, you're moving a little bit faster, but I still do 9 reps in the same amount of time I do 9 reps with my elbow. Now, the average scores when I would compare handheld to elbow loaded were 80 to 120%. Those were the average improvements of pec activation. Now, when I say average, I'm averaging 4 sensors on the pec. So if we wanted to speak about more normal numbers, things that would make more sense, you could look at one region of the pec. So when I do clavicular pec testing on incline flies, the difference is about 30%, maybe 40% on just the clavicle.
And that's even when you're doing pure adduction, because you don't even incorporate shoulder flexion when you're doing the test, right? It's just pure adduction just with an incline.
It's pure adduction. And for a number of reasons. One, I believe in lining up the
fiber orientation?
With fiber orientation, yeah. So I also tested the Ryan Jewer's wrist cuffed shoulder flexion incline raise. I don't know what you would call that thing, but basically
I did it with the BetterFly, actually. I kind of liked it.
Yeah, and it's fine. The problem is when you do shoulder flexion to work the pec, the only part of the pec that works is the clavicular head of the pec.
Only some of those motor units as well. It's not even all of them.
Right. But it is very much an upper pec isolation move because the EMG on the bottom half of the pec is like nothing. You're not doing anything down here. And when you do an incline fly in the hands, like a standard old school bodybuilder incline fly would be, then you are still activating the upper pec more so than everything else. And it's not quite as good. I guess the flexion version would activate the upper pec a little bit more than this direction if you're doing it in your hands. Okay, I'll give you that. However, when I tested it against the BetterFly, doing strict shoulder adduction, it was 1,000% better. Okay, 1,000%. And let me explain the numbers when you look at the pec. So I had two sensors on the clavicular pec, and those were both about 40% better with the BetterFly than with the shoulder flexion version. So about 40% better up here, okay? That's still worth writing home about. I would still be like, hey, bro, I'm getting 40% better gains with the BetterFly in my upper pec. Okay, that's great. The sternal head of the pec, 600% improvement. 600%. Because it's just not doing anything in shoulder flexion. Shoulder flexion, the sternal pec does nothing. It's like literally dormant. And even with handheld flies, it doesn't do a whole lot. That's very upper pec emphasis. But when you put it on...
You're basically implying that doing that kind of incline clavicular fly with the BetterFly is probably better than doing like literally any other chest exercise without a BetterFly for any other head of the pecs. Even like the lower pecs probably would have higher activation in that incline fly that you do with the BetterFly than like a decline press or something like that.
About 1,000% better, actually.
Wow, that's crazy. That has pretty crazy implications. I would love to see more like research done with these cuffs. Like,
my friend in New Zealand, Rowan, who owns Mr. EMG, has the BetterFly, and he's working on testing it right now and releasing some videos on it. So that's coming soon from New Zealand. I'm actually going to pull up the EMG numbers on this side-by-side comparison. So these are the numbers right here. So this was Ryan Jewer's wrist cuffed incline shoulder flexion fly, whatever. And it was 900. So it's 30% better on the middle clavicular pec, okay? On the inner clavicular pec, 800% better. So that's where the clavicle and the sternum meet, okay? So at the very top.
Resistance profile maybe? Like, could the resistance profile change when you use the BetterFly in such a way that maybe it loads like the more proximal portion of the pecs heavier? Interesting.
Yeah, it definitely does, because basically, think about it. When you're raising your arm forward in shoulder flexion, you're moving the pec in that direction. You're not moving it in this direction. You're moving it forward and up. So the inner part of the pec that's attached to the clavicle and the sternum right here at the top is very dormant. You can even put your hand on it as you lift up, and you could tell like this is soft right here on my sternum. But if I move over a couple inches, well, okay, when I lift my arm right in the middle of my clavicle, that's working, okay? Now, when I move my arm out for shoulder adduction, oh my goodness, like my pec pops off of my bone right there. Yeah. So that's 800. Yeah, exactly. And the motor unit activity was 800% on the inner, 900% better on the sternum, and 2,300% better on the abdominal head, which is the sternocostal head, but I call it abdominal because it's easier to locate on the body. So for a total score of 1,000% better. And I'll send you the screenshot, but it's like, you look at the results from the left side, and there's like the red line is doing something. That's just your clavicular pec.
I have one question about like how you measured the two different sets. Like you said you would do the same amount of reps for both sets, say with like a D handle versus with the BetterFly. So obviously the RIR is presumably going to be different, especially if you're equating the torque, because you're probably going to have more reps by the end of the set with the BetterFly than with the D handle. So that activation was higher even with more reps in the tank with the BetterFly, we can assume. That's crazy. So sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah, so every rep is independent. So the EMG doesn't know how far I go past the selection. So even if I took each set to failure, which I don't, because then the fatigue from one set could affect my ability to perform the next set.
Because activation is going to plateau earlier than that.
Yeah, yeah. So these are 10 seconds, these are 25-second samples, and the results are just crazy because the pec stays engaged so much longer when you are elbow loaded. And all I can think is that by applying the weight at the elbow, the pec has to activate to start the rep. When there's nothing else to contribute to the fly movement, like I can't bend my arm, I can't flex my bicep, I can't really get the weight started without moving my pecs when it's in my elbows. My elbows basically require me to engage the pec on every inch of
they're forced to literally be the only mover. Like you're just removing every other possible. Yeah, it's crazy. It's awesome. I'm literally you've convinced me. I'm 6 months, no pressing. We're gonna see what it does to my chest.
So here's the other cool thing. The first month or two I was doing BetterFly flies. I did BetterFly presses and BetterFly flies until actually it only took me a couple weeks. I'm not that dumb, but I realized that the fly and the press are the same movement. So when you attach at the elbow, it's the exact same thing.
Well, the press, I find with a press though, like you're more focused on locking out your elbow, even though it's not involved. So like you get less shortened. Like I feel like if I'm doing a fly, I'm going to shorten much more than if I were just thinking of pressing with a cuff, because I'm just going to try to lock out my arms. You know.
Right. So you're thinking of a press when your hands are fixed on a bar.
Yeah, but even if I were to do like a cuffed press, just naturally, maybe that's just because I'm thinking of like a press when my hands are on a bar. Like even if I were to do like with the BetterFly and I were going to do a press instead of a fly, I would probably try to imitate like a barbell press in the sense that I'm trying to like lock out my arms. So you did it kind of differently, is what you're saying?
Yeah, because when I do dumbbell presses, I always tap the dumbbells together at the top. And when I do cable presses, I tap my hands together. And so when I do flies, I bring my hands together. So it was for me the same.
Makes so much sense.
Yeah.
At the top of a cable press or like a dumbbell press, there's really not going to be much tension on your pecs at all, even though you're trying to touch the like dumbbells together. So like when you have the cuff, because of also where the cable's set up, there's actually going to be like a decent amount of torque at that fully contracted position. So that also explains the whole like inner pec activation thing a lot more.
So it's so good, man. When you start to feel that pump down your sternum, and you're like, I've never been able to work these attachment points in my pecs so exclusively. You'll notice, like I said, within weeks, probably 2 months, you'll start to notice that your pec is forming in a rounder shape because you're actually engaging the pec fibers all the way across the muscle to where it attaches on the bone instead of just essentially working half of your pec with a traditional fly. I mean, the EMG is showing like I'm using more motor units, and those motor units are the ones, because I put the sensors around my outer chest and up at the top, because I know if I put them in the middle, I mean, I'm still gonna get better readings, but I'm gonna get the best readings when I see the fibers that aren't usually engaged, and I proved it. I'm like, these fibers in the center and the top, which are really the money makers, honestly, for a physique. I mean, you can get thicker pecs, but what you want is you want your pecs to be touching. You want to have, that upper pec that wraps onto your clavicle up here, when you move.
People feel like they can never change that too. A lot of people are led to believe that that's never going to change. They can't even train for it, which is not even true.
It's true now. It's true now. So yeah, man, it's pretty awesome. And the EMG test for deltoids showed 40% improvement on a pretty regular basis. And the EMG for back. So the back one is interesting because when you put the BetterFly on your arm to do a lat pull down where the cable lines up literally with your upper arm, you're only getting about 20% to 25% better lat activation. Because your forearm and your bicep, your bicep doesn't really do a whole lot until you get down to where your arm is at the very bottom. The lat is going to pull it down to here, and then the bicep is going to engage from here to here. So you do get less bicep engagement, but as far as the lat is concerned, EMG wise, whenever you're just moving the attachment point and the cable is still right there with your upper arm, it doesn't show as great of results as it does for like a chest fly, because just the motion is different. But it's still good. 25% is still something, and I still do them because I love them. My lats still get so pumped using the BetterFly. It's just incredible. And then finally, the glutes. So I was going through the body. I was thinking, single joint movement. What else is there that never gets worked in isolation? And I looked over and I was like, hey, glutes. I see girls all the time putting ankle straps on their ankles and doing glute. Yeah. No, like literally a plate.
And they're hip thrusting 5 plates, but they're doing 10 pounds on the kickback.
It's the exact thing I said about bench press. Yeah. It's the exact thing. Yeah. I literally have seen a girl at my gym hip thrust 315. And then she glute kickbacks like 22 pounds per leg. And again, it's that disconnect where you say, this doesn't make sense. So I developed the BetterFly for legs, which was just a little bit bigger version, and put it on my leg right above my knee and started doing the EMG testing on my glutes. And I'm about to release the video for it because I just have to edit it. I haven't had time. So I compared squats, Smith squats with 200 pounds, Smith lunges with 100 pounds, RDLs with 80-pound dumbbells in hand, so 160-pound RDLs, 225 on hip thrusts. So I was hip thrusting 225. So I'm not as strong as the girls in my gym, but we won't talk about that. And then I compared it to glute kickbacks on the ankle with 44 pounds, which is what I can do, and then 88 pounds with the BetterFly. Okay. Which one was the best?
Well, I'm
Good activation.
going to assume it was the
With
BetterFly.
the BetterFly.
So the BetterFly was 40% better than 225 on hip thrusts. It was 50% better than squats and lunges. Those were actually very, very similar. And then it was 80% better than the ankle loaded kickbacks. So it was just, it was incredible. And the glute pump you get from doing kickbacks in a single joint motion is just amazing.
If anything, like when I do a kickback, I kind of need the moment arm to be longer, but I would like to see how it works for me if I try to push it with the weight, because now this is making me think, like, if I'm doing like, because this is what I'm doing like 7-8 plates on most hip thrust machines, like, and if I'm doing like a barbell hip thrust, I'm probably doing like 3 or 4. So like I'm probably gonna have to use the stack, right? Like,
yeah, I use the whole stack when I do the glute kickbacks with the BetterFly. It's 115 pounds per leg.
Are there any issues with stability when you do that?
I don't, because I put both hands on the machine, and so I'm holding the machine with both hands, and then I move my leg back. It does take some getting used to, but it's not as hard as it sounds.
That's what you're saying. And did you notice a lot of hamstring activation on the kickback too with the BetterFly, or not really?
No, not from the ankle. Yes, from the ankle. So when I'm on an ankle attachment, my hamstring is engaged the entire time, and I think my hamstring is honestly the limiting factor, because when I move it to my knee, I double the reps. When I double the weight, I also double the reps. So if I can do 10 or 12 reps in my ankle at 44, I'm doing 20 to 25 reps with 88 in my knee. And then I raise the weight, obviously, to 115, which is my stack, and do 10 or 12 with 115. And I just make sure that my range of motion, so my upper body is parallel to the floor, and my knee is coming all the way forward and then going all the way back. So if this is my torso and this is my hip joint, my knee, comes up to my chest and then goes all the way back. And
Oh, so you still didn't see that much hamstring activation in that deep of hip flexion? That's crazy.
no, my hamstring really wasn't feeling anything. And I had, full, the full lower leg flexion, or the knee, I guess it would be hip flexion. No, sorry, hip extension.
Right, because it actually has to be torque on the knee in order for the hamstrings to be active, is the implication that has.
That would be my thought. Well, I'm going to have to wrap up. I've got my family texting me about...
Yeah, we went for so long, but dude, thank you so much for coming on. That was a really awesome conversation. It was really, thank you for giving me an insight into like how you invented the product and everything. I think it's going to be great. And if you want to drop your socials for anybody.
Yeah, TheBetterFly LLC on TikTok and Instagram.
You got any, do you have any idea when the final product is going to be coming out for sale, or not yet?
I was hoping to get it ready for Christmas, but I'm getting delays with my injection mold to make my support plates. So it looks like it'll be January, but I already have a booth at the Arnold. So anyone who's planning to go to the Arnold in Columbus in March, I'll have tons of product then for sure. And before then, on my website, hopefully January, but I want to get this right. So I'm going to make sure it's right before it comes out.
All right. Well, once again, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.